this week with your directions. One of them was an invitation to join my caregiver support group. The first one this month will be on Monday at 6:30. Please feel free to join us. It's a great group. And if you're interested, please send me an email saying, please include me. I'll send the link. Let's see. The recordings of the session so far will be posted by Monday. That'll be a 1, 2, and 3. So bear with me on that. We're having a few glitches on number 1, but I'm still but the other 2 will be available immediately. Sessions 4 and 5 may be reversed. The speaker for next week may have an issue, but we will have the fifth session on the 4th week and the 4th session on the 5th week if necessary. But I'll let you know this week when I send you the directions. I'd like to talk about the sessions running a little bit long. There's so much great information, it's hard to stick to an hour. And I will tell you the days will be a little bit longer too. But, and I've got a few concerns about from watchers, and I apologize, but I hope you're getting a lot out of the overtime. Last week, 86 of you remained to the very end. So that just shows how important the information is to people. Okay. Okay, so PowerPoints I sent you Rick's PowerPoints for today. If you didn't get them, let me know. And I'll be sending Poki'i's 2 weeks worth this week as well. Let's see. I'm trying to mute everybody except the speaker and myself. And if you'd like to remove your picture just have your name appear on the screen, there's a button at the top of your picture that says Stop Video. And you can take your picture off, but you can still hear us and see us. But we'd like to still see your smiling faces if you want to stay on with us. If you're watching this this program with a friend, there's more than one of you watching, could you please go down and send me a chat and tell me how many people are watching, because the numbers are also reported, participants are reported to the grantors, so it's important I get correct numbers. Okay, so you know, to ask a question, you can go to the bottom of the screen where it says chat and type in your question. And at the end of the program, I will be asking the questions of Rick, and he will respond to your questions at that time. And also, he's going to ask you some questions to respond to, and he'll be looking at those responses during the program. Let's see, because this president, I'm reading my notes, I'm sorry. Because this presentation is brought to you by a grant, the pre-test, post-test, and evaluation are really important documents. And I thank all of you that have been completing those diligently. I appreciate that. But the information from these forms has to be sent in with the grant report at the end of the program. So I appreciate everybody completing those for me. And you're going to have more homework each week for the next 2 sessions as well. Some of you didn't sign up for the entire series, but you'll be getting the same emails everybody else gets, because I couldn't separate you out. Just ignore them if you don't want to join us, that's fine. And I told you at the end of the series, I'll be sending all PowerPoints, presentations, resource materials from all of our supporters, and some goodies and information from the Office on Elder Affairs. If you didn't give me your complete name and address, I can't send you these items, so make sure you completed the registration totally. I have about 6 names with no last name, and 1 with just an email, no name, no address. So if you don't remember filling out the entire registration, please check, because I want you to get everything that I promised to send you. Now, on to our program. Rick Tabor's bio was sent to you, but he has a few updates, like I said earlier. His professional experience provides a wealth of knowledge and information that he's going to share with you. So I hope you enjoy it as much as you've enjoyed the other ones. I know you will, because he's very entertaining. So Rick, here you go.
All right, Kathy, thank you very much. This first page here, if you just look at the bottom, it's got my email address on there and even my phone number. So it's going to come at the very beginning. So if you want to make note of that, you can. If you don't, that's okay too. And you can always chat, and we'll answer that there too. After each section, I probably will. If you have a question, go ahead and chat, and Kathy will let me know. And I'm fine taking questions as we go along. I do have a lot to cover. So let's see here. Oops, there we go. So that's me, 45 years ago over at Kaneohe Marine Corps Air Station. And I was petty officer in charge of the mental health clinic. I was actually a Navy hospital corpsman, started here in Hawaii and, well, way back then. It's been a whole career of mental health for me. And what I've done here is I've rolled in all of my experience into this training here that I've been doing for a number of years. I've tailored it for us, the caregiver, but it's actually open for everybody because it's really coping skills, self-care, and stress management all rolled into one. So I'm going to give you a little bit of aging in place caregiver facts, not a lot, because I want to focus mostly on the caregiver self-care tools, and experiential exercises is kind of what I'm used to doing. So I've modified this today for Zoom. And so I'm really excited to share it with you. I've gone from actually doing a Jeopardy game with this, where we draw it and we act it out. And we did one of these presentations at Shamanon. They do feeling charades games, all that kind of stuff. But I've had to adjust, just like all of us, to the COVID world here. So go ahead and chat in your questions as we go along, because that'll help me tailor this. This presentation can take on any meaning that we want it to. I just want it to be meaningful for all of us and for us to all to have a great time, okay? If you're new to Zoom, I don't know if anybody is anymore. We've been doing this about 6 months now. But if you are, like Kathy said, please keep yourself muted. The background noise gets really pretty distracting. And we're just going to use the chat box. And Kathy will moderate that for us, okay? So I appreciate that. All right, so I believe Dr. Blau's probably shared this very thing with you. She and I are both, and Kathy too, we do things with Alzheimer's Association. So what I want to say is one change. Sadly, as of April 10th, 2020, the coronavirus became the leading cause of death in America, and it continues. So dementia-related diseases are now 7th. Once we have a vaccine, as you know, we're hoping that the virus curve should be flattened and gone. It's the same for Alzheimer's. Once we actually, Alzheimer's-related diseases, once we know more, we're hoping to eliminate that as well, right? So that's the world we live in. Of note, I'm hoping you can see my arrow. At the point that this came out last year, in 2020, beginning of the year actually, 16 million Americans were providing unpaid care for Alzheimer's or related dementias. That's pretty significant. 5 million Americans live with Alzheimer's. This is when this came out, and this is just what's diagnosed. Not all are diagnosed. We actually think it could be even double that, maybe. Here in Hawaii, we're saying there's 29,000 people living with dementia-related illnesses that we're caring for. So pretty significant. I think to care for those who once cared for us is one of life's highest honors. And you're here, I assume, because you're either caretaking or you're planning to be caretaking. And it's a big feat, but it is an honor. Down in the bottom corner, I have a little meme there. Wrinkles mean you laughed, gray hair means they cared, and scars mean you lived. And then I always like to say, if our eyes only saw souls, the world would be a better place. So along those lines, so I've got a pretty interactive little PowerPoint here. So age, you've heard this Satchel Paige saying, I'm sure. Age is mind over matter if it doesn't matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. It does though. And so when we're caregivers, there are some expectations. So there's a big difference between parenting a newborn, where there's an awakening with every discovery. Our elders, our loved ones, we tend to have to adjust to their reality of gradually letting go in life. So we need to set realistic, achievable expectations and change. Changes kind of evolve over time. We're going the other direction generally. And that's a big shift. So if you have a partner that you're caring for, your whole relationship changes when you become the caretaker. Everything kind of shifts. And that's what I want to talk about here today quite a bit. So there's this, there's some caregiver skills. So I was So one of the updates that Kathy mentioned is I was right at home's manager for 3 years. We were even named the caregiver agency provider of best caregiver provider in the entire West Coast in 2019. Currently, I'm kind of semi-retired between jobs. I'm sheltering in place. Probably get back out there and start working again here once somebody offers me the perfect job. And I've been doing a lot of this, just sharing this kind of information. So when I was hiring caregivers, which some of you may be in the position to do, or even you as a caregiver, the skills I noticed, and they're true in everything in life, is skills can be learned. We can teach people how to deal with IDLs, IADLs. I mean, we can teach people that, but patience, empathy, compassion, kindness, and even reliability are all innate natural traits that really can't be taught. And so Kathy or I, when we're actually hiring people, we're looking for those things because that's pretty hard to instill in someone. You either got that or you don't. And I put this slide in here because there's an awful lot of us that are the caretakers in our family, and there's a lot of family members that just can't step up to that plate. And there's a lot of resentment around that. And I just want to say that some folks can do it and some really cannot, and some should not because they don't have the patience for it. That's the same when folks get married and one partner wants to have a child, another partner doesn't. Sometimes people just can't step up and do that. Caregiving, end of life kind of caregiving brings up a whole lot of issues that we have to be able to, or have to is a bad term. We'll want to kind of wrap our heads around, or it's going to be very, very difficult. And it's difficult already anyway. So I just put that out there. So AARP had a research some time ago that they quoted saying 30% of caregivers die before the person they care for does. I find that alarming. In mental health, my 45 years in mental health, this study that shows that 80% of illnesses are stress related has been replicated many times. There's comorbid, that means another correlating issues that go on, be it physical or mental illnesses, such as depression, heart disease, strokes, heart attacks, hypertension, obesity, diabetes, insomnia, gastrointestinal diseases, cancer, and autoimmune diseases. Taking care of ourselves is really a priority. It's very hard to care for others and do it well if we're not caring for ourselves. So the first thing we need to do, which I'm hoping to kind of share with you, are find ways to care for ourselves. So I'm going to have a lot of different tools that I'm going to share with you. And they center around life is 10% of what happens and 90% how we respond to it. And so I want to address that 90%. I can't do anything, none of us can do anything about the 10% of what life does out there. But we can manage things. And I also want to just say for the essential workers that continue to keep us alive out there, I just really want to applaud them. Nurses like Kathy and doctors like Dr. Balaz, everybody in this workshop, and all of you. I think we're all essential workers in some ways, but the ones that are out there, I really want to acknowledge them. So on that 90%, when you can't control what's happening, challenge yourself to control the way you respond to what's happening. That's where your power is. So I'm hoping to empower you in some ways to do that. Now, in my tools that I'm going to share today, you already have a lot of these tools. This is really kind of common sense kind of stuff. So I got creative. So for my bibliography, I thought maybe my resources, I would just take a picture of our books. These are things that actually inspired this presentation and have inspired me in life. And I don't just talk about these strategies that I'm going to share with you. I actually live them. They're very much a part of who I am. Like everyone, I'm human, so I'm not perfect. And so I can always work on things just like anybody else can. So the start is right here. I don't hope you can see my arrow, but Rogers on Becoming a Person. That was like the general psychology 101 book. Taught us client-centered. Teaches us just how to one-on-one with a person, hear what they're saying, have empathy for what they're saying. The one above it is the science. This is of living. This is Alfred Adler. This is Adlerian psychology, which really talked a lot about family structure. The one above this is In and Out of the Garbage Pail. It's actually the leftover parts of Frederick Perl's Gestalt therapy book, which is pretty intense. He and Carl Rogers spun off of the Sigmund Freud psychoanalysis, psychodynamic therapies, and started their own. One above that is Risking by David Biscott. This talks about, in Western cultures, we feel that if we don't take a risk, we don't get ahead. Over here, I have the Feeling Good Handbook by David Burns. This is a really, really popular book. It came out in 1988, I believe it was, 87, 88. There's also a workbook that goes with it. This came out the same time as the antidepressants came out, and it actually revolutionized treatment for depression. It actually made it very doable. The next slide, when I get to the next two slides, they actually come from this book. A couple of just screening tools that we can use. This 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work by John Gottman. This is really just relationships 101. And one of the points in here I make throughout this presentation is we're going to have hard times. And the key is how we go through it. So we're going through 6 months of a crisis right now, and different people are managing it differently. We are really who we are. We really see who people are during a crisis. And what he says is, as long as we're not, and I really truly believe this, if we're not tearing people apart, putting people down, we're maintaining the relationship through it. If we can get through difficult times, have disagreements with people without ripping them to shreds, which is sadly what does go on Facebook and places like that sometimes, we can maintain the relationship. The most popular book I have is right here, the Anxiety Phobia Workbook by Edmund Bourne. This is a book that really has every coping skill technique you'd ever want to see is in here, I think. It describes generalized anxiety, panic attacks, assertiveness, all kinds of things. And what's cool about this book is it isn't just that, it's a workbook. You don't have to read it cover to cover to get something from it. You could actually go straight to the chapter. It's going to define what the issue is, generalized anxiety, there's a general definition of that. Then it's going to go into a little bit of a screening tool, or actually a screening tool that you could take to kind of see where you are within generalized anxiety or anxiety attacks. Then it's going to talk about ways to manage those, which I have some of it in here in this presentation. And then it's going to have a measurement that you can do to kind of monitor how you're doing with it. So pretty cool book. It's probably the most popular book I've used in my counseling practices through the years. The Depression Workbook is also similar. Mind Over Mood is also similar to that. And down here on the very bottom is DBT Workbook. I do have a little bit from that. It's at the very, very tail end, but I do hear from Kathy, what she said earlier, that folks need to wrap up maybe sooner than we have a lot of information here. So I'm going to check and see where we're at with time at the end and see if we have time for it or not. Cool thing about this is the reason it's in this 3-ring binder is Marsha Linehan, who developed dialectical behavioral therapy. She's also a professor at University of Washington, along with John Gottman. And I moved out here from Seattle a few years ago and was there for 31 years. So during that time, I used to have clients of Marsha Linehan's, and this is actually printed out copies of her second edition of the book, and it even has her notes in it. And she used to meet with me from time to time. And I won't even get into it. Over here we have my wife as our parents, as we're aging out in life. She's a real reader, so she came up with these remarkable books, You and Your Aging Parents, Stages of Senior Care, and on and on and on. Okay, so tons of books. I'm more, though, than books. I'm more experiential, so I'm more about the experience of who I'm with and how that our relationship and how we go through things together and helping people. I learn as much from folks that I'm helping as I hope they're learning from me. I certainly learn a lot in the process, though. All right, so from the Feeling Good book, David Beck Burns used the Beck Anxiety Inventory. There's an anxiety inventory and there's a depression inventory. So real fast, so we just rate ourselves. I'm not going to have us do this. You have it in, I think I printed it in the handout. I hope I did anyway. So there's 21 questions. We rate ourselves on a 0 to 3 scale for how we are doing with that in the last month, including today. So numbness and tingling, 0 to 3, feeling hot. So, and then we score it, and then we can see where we fall with our own anxiety. It's a screening tool, though. You'll notice that with anxiety, it's mostly physiological kinds of stuff that go on with anxiety. anxiety is kind of a cascading series of events. And so if you really fall into like anxiety attack kind of stuff, a person has those kinds of issues, once the first couple of issues surface, it just automatically follows that until you break that pattern, if you will. There are medications for that. There's a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy kind of approaches that we use for it as well. I want to note though, for this and also the depression inventory, these are just screening tools. If you scored in the, well, even the high end of the low anxiety, moderate range up to the, of course, extreme range, you do want to be seen by a doctor just to check things out. I'm going to note though, there could be side effects to medications. There could be physiological things that are actually going on that need to be checked out. I mean, it could be a tumor, it could be all kinds of things that are going on that are triggering some of these symptoms. So you want to get medically cleared before you go down the route of dealing with it as anxiety. Now, you also can deal with it as anxiety with the thought messages that you give yourself and trying to manage it and some of the tools that we're going to use here. But if you are scoring in the higher ranges, or if you're uncomfortable with what's going on, you should really consult with the doctor, okay? So then the Beck inventory. So this is for depression. So what I did here is they actually give 4 different responses and you pick which one and it rates it on a scale also of 0 to 3. I didn't have room to do it, so I just picked one just to make it, and so I just picked the obvious ones just to define depression a little bit. Sadness, hopelessness, feel like a failure, satisfaction from activities, you lose satisfaction from activities, feelings of guilt, on and on. There's 21 of them. Same thing, so you rate those. And if you're falling in the high end of the mild, even borderline, moderate, severe, extreme, you might want to consult with your doc. Well, definitely if you get up to severe and extreme, you do want to consult. Somebody should consult with their doc. I would put in as a mental health professional that if somebody prescribes medication for either anxiety, but definitely for depression, you really should have some counseling, try to help manage things. What happens to folks, there's even a label now, a boxed warning on antidepressants that say it could cause suicide. So they don't actually, the medication doesn't cause suicide. What causes some people to suicide is if you lift them out of their depression, they sometimes, and they haven't worked on the core issues that are going on, sometimes it's still overwhelming. And that's when we have suicidal kind of thoughts or issues that go on. So it's very important to work with a counselor if you're in, definitely at the beginning of doing a medication trial or medication treatment, just to kind of get a handle on things, okay? I'm gonna go a little bit more into some of that here. Not gonna spend so much time on suicide, but really about how to manage our thoughts and our moods and our stress. Okay, so real fast, those are the inventories. So this is the first time I've shared those with folks. And okay, so here, what do you see first? Animals or people? And you don't have to answer on chat, just, it's kind of an interesting. What I would like to talk about with this is family roles. So I did a little bit earlier. So family roles are the patterns of behavior by which we fulfill our functions within the family. So some people take the role as caretakers. They're always taking care of things. Some avoid doing anything. Some will argue. I mean, there's all kinds of roles we take. And those patterns are established very early in life. It doesn't mean that they can't change. I'm just pointing out that we do have patterns that go on. And so for when mom or dad hit a bump in the road and us kids need to kind of step up, we tend to have those patterns resurface, and that's just part of what goes on. Everyone seems to take the roles that they take. When the roles are that everybody works together, and I'm fortunate that I have family that does happen with, it's very sweet. When it doesn't, then it's a little more tricky. And there are big decisions that we need to make, like I said, when people hit a bump in the road. We'll talk about that as we go along a little bit too. When we're hiring somebody to come in to care for our kapuna, there's things that go on like transferences. So transference is a psychodynamic term for when the client's redirection of feelings about a specific person is put on another person. So you remind me of someone. So our brains, and I'm going to go one step further. So countertransference is when the caretaker does the same, usually a projected transference. You remind me of someone. So our minds are kind of, not kind of, they're tooled to profile folks to something that's familiar. Everything we do is we try to make things familiar. We oversimplifying sometimes. A great example is I was working in a program in Seattle for 12 years, and I was DJing dances for developmentally disabled, mentally ill adults. And I took over the DJing from a young guy that was really cool from Kauai, ponytail, Chinese Hawaiian. His family run luau's. He played guitar, and he would DJ. So he really had a DJ kind of look. I come in, you know, I'm bald, I'm older, had gray hair, and right away I'm kind of tagged as, oh, he's not going to be able to handle it. I mean, I won them over by focusing on it, but we tend to box people in, judge them for what they are. So I have some information on that as well. That's true, though, for caretaking. And what does happen over time is that as the person focuses on the task, does the task, develops the relationship kind of shifts what our thought process is. These are just things in the very beginning. Family roles tend to stay the same throughout. Sometimes they change, but okay, so just pointing that out. All right, so this is three brothers here. So this is me, broke my arm in high school playing football. Next week, my next oldest brother broke his playing football. The third one was in elementary school, so he was victorious, no broken arm, playing flag football. My folks ran a newspaper, so we were always in the paper, which was kind of annoying. But my point with the picture is life is what happens while we're busy making other plans. So live for today because tomorrow isn't promised. Don't sweat the small stuff and find a way to manage the big things. You've heard all of this before, but things can change pretty fast. Things are always evolving. So I don't know if you know who Kubler-Ross is, but I'd like to just, because we are going through a pandemic and there's some other crisis things that could come up, and you've certainly dealt with things. Kubler-Ross came up with the stages of grief, and they're denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, and we've recently added meaning. So in the beginning, when a crisis happens, maybe you're diagnosed with, I mean, God forbid, but I mean, it happens, of course. We're diagnosed with, well, Alzheimer's or cancer or something. In the very beginning, there's some denial. Nah, they got to have it wrong. I'm going to get a second opinion. This didn't happen. And then once we kind of accept that it has happened, oftentimes there's different forms of anger that can surface. Those can be anxiety and depression as well. Depression sometimes is what people move into, but it could just be outright anger. It's the same when folks are grieving changes that are going on in the loved one. So we as caregivers just need to be aware that's possibly what's going on, and might not be about us. It might be more about what's happening in their life that they're having a hard time managing. Bargaining. So bargaining is when, so I've been diagnosed with cancer and I say, oh, okay, if you just get me through this, I'll quit smoking, you know, so I'm okay. Or, you know, we make all kinds of deals. I don't know how many people have been in very traumatic situations and, you know, say a prayer that if I just get through this, I'm going to go to church every Sunday or something like that. It's bargaining. Depression, like I mentioned, can fall into the anger pretty quickly. But depression, you know, it can be very depressing to have to deal with chronic illness kinds of things, or to watch somebody going through that we love. And then acceptance is, of course, then just accepting that that's what's going on. That's when we click into gear and start doing research to see what else we can do to manage things. Meaning is finding meaning in what's happening. This is a fairly recent one, but I've known this from some time, that when you come out of a trauma, things have shifted, and you start to try to understand, one, how did that happen? If it's something that's preventable, what can I do differently? Or two, okay, it happened, and you know, there is some forgiveness that some people actually need to do to get through the grief. Not give forgiveness for something that was wrong that happened to you, but more that it happened, kind of thing. These are all, they move. They don't necessarily come all at one time in this order. It can bounce around and we go back through them. So like with Alzheimer's, there's various stages. We tend to go through the same process, some of these, as each stage goes along. So stages of grief, just real fast, okay? So never fly faster than your guardian angel. This is a mural I took. Grief never ends, but it changes like a passage through life. evolving as time goes by. It is not a sign of weakness, nor a lack of faith. It's the beauty of love. Our love for someone is what hurts when something happens or when a situation shifts. Now, I'm sharing this not just as the caregiver. We're going through a crisis right now. We don't know what's going to happen in this pandemic. You know, we've had 4 days in a row of 100 cases here on Hawaii, so we're definitely still in the midst of it. It's changing everything. Things are going to shift. So here I am, right here in the center with the glasses, green shirt. These are some Navy corpsmen. We're in Mindoro, Philippines. It's actually October 21st, 1977. And it's been 110 degrees. We've been there on an exercise. Fortress Lightning was the operation. It was a 6.5, 7-month operation. We left from Hawaii, Camp Pendleton and us from Hawaii, 27 ships, headed over to all the Asian ports. And this was our first stop. It's 110 degrees there. We had tons of heat casualties. Gary Davidson here has the last of our normal sailing. We're getting ready to leave, so we're pretty happy. There's going to be a party. We're packing up. I think we're all packed up at this point, ready to go, just waiting for our chopper. And then boom, we were involved in the worst Marine Corps peacetime casualty ever in history. It's in the Leather Book. It's in class action suits have just been settled, so things have been released out there. This is after we spent 36 hours dealing with that as a quorum, and I won't get into the details. But what I do point out is that through crisis, I grow through what I go through. We grow through it as long as we're open to learning from it, experiencing it, protecting ourselves from it. We learn from it. So what happens is we're changed by our experiences. So beliefs evolve as we get more information. Values kind of stay the same. So what happens is everything shifts by our experience. We can't change some things that happen. All we can do is control how we manage it. And some of what I'm going to share with you today goes into all of that. So just, you don't have to write anything on this. Just think about traumatic events that have changed your life and try to tap into some of the positive things that have come from some of the hard things that you've gone through in life. As crisis is an opportunity for growth. So this is one of the oldest Chinese Confucians, if you will, out there. I had somebody explain to me, so this is the crisis, and this is opportunity, and this is basically a pendulum. And what happens in life is if a situation gets so unbearable that it becomes a crisis, we tend to have to step up and try to manage it. And through that, managing the situation and resolving it, we grow. Now, I'm not saying go into all kinds of crises so that you can advance yourself. I shared with you the Risking Viscott book. In the Western culture, we talk about taking risks is how we move ahead. I left a very good job to use my GI Bill to go to graduate school to go into counseling psychology. It was a risk. I was making a good living, but I decided to go back to school. It's taking a risk. Starting a business is taking a risk. I would say one thing we don't grow from, I don't want to be political, but is running around without a mask during a pandemic. I'm not sure there's growth from that. But the sad thing with crisis is if we don't manage it, it can get unbearable. So where are we right now during this COVID-19 pandemic? So these circles, we use this for a number of things. There's a fear zone, a learning zone, and a growing zone. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to parallel my experiential definitions and kind of just work them through experientially through these slides here. So in the fear zone, that's where the panic buying goes, takes over. People are easily annoyed, they're irritable, they're afraid, they're stocking up on toilet paper, alcohol, things like that. Oh, what's going on here? Learning zone that's that acceptance part of the grief where we're starting to release control. We stop consuming everything in sight. We start to recognize that we are all trying to do our best to face a complicated situation. I have to say here in Hawaii, we've kept our numbers relatively low. with COVID-19 because people, more so than not, I think we have a lot of compliance. There are some knuckleheads out there that aren't complying, but I would say more so than not, we're very compliant. Growing zone, this is where we're really, the meaning part, where we're learning. So we think about others and how to help them. We find purpose. We live in the present. We're grateful just to be alive. And again, this shifts with crisis and what's going on. Dealing with someone with Alzheimer's, it's the same thing. You've got fear zone, learning zone, growing zone. You can apply this to almost anything, these rings, okay? All right, so that was all pretty heavy. So I just want to say, every time you find some humor in a difficult situation, you win. So it's good to laugh at yourself, not in a put down kind of way, but just, oh my gosh, you know. It's good to laugh with people. It's not okay to laugh at them though. But humor is very important. So let's throw in a little humor here. So let's watch how much weight we gained during our time here, sheltering in place. All right. Any questions there so far? Anybody? No? Okay.
Rick, I do have a few questions.
Okay. Do you want to ask now? Now we'll move into the next section, which will be this.
Okay.
So let me just say though, this slide here, we're going to break this slide into each of the 9. So don't get overwhelmed by everything on there. I'll read them, but actually, you know what? Let me just back up. Let's go with that. Okay, go ahead, Kathy.
The first question is, how are physicians being educated on dementia-related issues or diseases? I'm sorry, related diseases.
Well, I think Dr. Balaz was kind of addressing some of that, I hope, in her presentation. So they tend to be, they have meetings, regular meetings with each other, with the latest information that's coming in. CDC was sending out quite a bit of information. I don't know with this new setup with the HHS that they just set up. I assume that they're sending the information. Science is always evolving. So just like beliefs, as we gather more information, things change. So if you recall, in the beginning, they didn't want us wearing masks in the beginning because there was a shortage of masks for the essential workers. And then they discovered how important masks were in the countries that were wearing masks, you know, all that kind of stuff. So sharing information and science is what's happening. I think a lot of them do a lot of reading, but they also do a lot of consulting with each other. Okay, real quickly, I would just say that. You learn from your patients as you evolve, things that happen too.
The other thing is some of the physicians are hesitant to diagnose dementia.
Oh, dementia. We're talking about dementia. I thought we were talking about COVID.
No, we're talking about dementia, honey. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, dementia is a whole nother area there. So with dementia right now, we're hearing that there's some real big breakthroughs we're on the verge of. But it's even diagnosing it isn't a science just yet. I mean, it's observational kinds of stuff, which is true in psychology as well with all of our diagnoses. So until they find like the genetic links and things like that, right, Kathy? It's hard to kind of do some of this stuff. And a doctor needs to be trained. I would say they'd be uncomfortable unless they're trained and specialized in this, right? So same as far as treatment. Now, we talk a bit about preventative stuff. Keeping the mind active is very important and can help. There's some things, some real clear things that are helpful. Yet in genetics, even with all the stuff that you do, you can slow things down. It still can occur.
Yeah,
go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, Dr. Balaz talked a lot about this, and it's really important to find a geriatrician because the geriatricians are more familiar with dementia and can diagnose, I guess, are more readily they're more ready to diagnose than regular PCPs are. So that's she talked about that in her presentation last week. Okay, someone was interested in learning about resources available on Hawaii Island. I will send you a booklet that gives you phone numbers for all the islands on who to contact for information.
Right. At the end, towards the end here, I have a resource, little bit of a resource section as well, which you're welcome to take a picture of.
Okay. And if you don't get what you need from the information I send you, I can just send me an email and I'll get you more information for the Big Island.
Right.
Okay. Next question is there financial aid available for being a caregiver?
financial aid for a caregiver.
Yeah.
No, not so much. We do
Well,
have, go ahead, Kathy.
I'm going to talk about Kapuna Caregiver Program and the Kapuna Care Program. It's
Right,
not necessarily payment to the caregiver, but it pays for services that you need to be a caregiver, like
exactly.
housekeeping and Meals on Wheels and just a companion for your loved one so you can go out and do chores. But both of them, the Kapuna Caregiver Program has been uh, widely sought after for adult daycare, but it does cover other services. And the
Right.
Kapuna Care Program covers many services, including transportation and the like. So
Yeah.
that'll be in that booklet to look at when I send it to you.
And each years we try to work on getting more funding in there to cover more things. So it's an evolving, ongoing kind of program, if you will. Yeah.
And the last question so far is, how about claiming as a dependent on taxes that you're the one you're caring for? I don't know about that one.
I don't, we could look into that and get back to you though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you'll send me an email, I'll be glad to answer that for you or get
Right.
the information for you.
Okay, so I'm going to move on. So this is the bulk of my presentation right here, 9 coping skills. So these 9 coping skills I've been using for probably 30 years, and I've modified it throughout the time. So at this point, some time ago, I put it into a picture format because it's just so much that's there. So the first one that we want to do, so these are just common sense kinds of things, and then I'm going to break them down into ways that we can use them. Deal with your feelings. So I'm going to read what I have here. Feelings are important because they can tell us what we need to do. To deal with our feelings, we must name them, realize it's okay to feel them, and express them in a safe way. Then we can decide what to do to feel better. So within that, loneliness is the biggest feeling right now going on out there. So before we moved into the COVID pandemic, research was showing that all developmental stages were having issues with loneliness. And some of it is because people nowadays are spending too much time on their phones, iPhone and computers, and not enough time person to person. Now that we're social distancing, we're doing a lot more of not having face-to-face kind of contact other than this Zoom kind of modality. So staying connected is really important. So it's the key component to lifelong health and happiness. So a lot of people are visiting people through Windows. Kathy and I are doing a lot of Zooms. I do a couple Zoom, 2-3 Zoom meetings almost every day. And in a lot of assisted living places, folks have their computers or their laptops that they're using to connect with folks. Even a phone call is helpful. And people are doing some of what this lady is doing that wants more wine, visiting through the window kind of stuff. And some people are actually having gatherings. And I have to say that's not going so well because that's where some of the outbreak is happening. We do want to be careful. But staying in touch is very, very important. And even before COVID, so I've discovered that some folks just are not comfortable visiting their elders, and so they don't, but it's important that somebody does if we can. And as caretakers, it's kind of important too that we spend some companion time, not just focused on tasks, but companion time, just to talk stories, just to go look at pictures, things like that. So loneliness. So what I do with dealing with our feelings, it's important for us to own our feelings rather than displace them. And so what I mean by that, this is in Kaka'ako, one of the recent powwow paintings, is to use our feelings in a I feel sentence and say, so I feel lonely when nobody visits me for a few days, or I feel happy when the Seahawks win the Super Bowl, which I am. Owning the feeling is very important. What we tend to do is today, too many are displacing. We're doing the blame thing. You always do this. It puts people on defense and it doesn't help us work things through. Owning the feeling is accepting that I'm feeling this way because this is happening. And then we can move forward from there, which we'll do here. So owning our feeling. So I feel surprised when my grandson comes to my birthday party that I haven't seen in 15 years. So I used to do feeling charade games here. What surprises you most about the coronavirus? It has done what no woman has been able to do. Cancel all sports, shut down all bars, and keep men at home. Humor again. Some folks have spent too much time together, and this is kind of happening. Don't walk away from me when I'm talking to you. So I feel angry when you don't stop after you've already made your point or something like that, right? So we're trying to move to expressing how we're feeling. He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe. Some of this, when we're dealing with someone with Alzheimer's, they're not going to relate to that. It's more for ourselves to kind of put that smile on our face. That's contagious, even as hard as things are, because we want to move to that we're adjusting our attitude. Attitude is really everything. It can chew us up. A bad attitude is like a flat tire. You can't go anywhere unless you change it. I used to have this hanging up in a group room that we'd have 50 to 75 people in every day. So take I can't and cut the T off because you can. Try to be positive. That's something on here. What happens when you get stressed? So first off, what does your brain need to think clearly? It needs oxygen. When we get stressed, we move into flight or fright. So flight or fright. Oh, it's supposed to say fright. There is a typo. Our breathing shortens. And so instead of getting the oxygen in the brain, we're not getting the oxygen in the brain because we're actually getting ready to react. And so breathing shortens. And so instead of following that, our emotions, if we follow our emotions, it's kind of hard to resolve issues. We got to kind of silence, quiet the emotions. And to do that, we take a few deep breaths. And your body calms. And your thoughts begin to flow. And the calmness helps us solve problems. So we need to kind of quiet the noise out there for us to kind of be able to think clearly. And that's really what we do to deal with our feelings and adjust our attitude. So adjust your attitude. What you tell ourselves about a situation will determine how we feel. Looking at the good side of things, having a positive attitude can help us feel better. Okay. So to do some of that, I many years ago came up with the stop sign technique. I was working with a group of, again, developmentally disabled ladies, and we were going banking, and I'd forgot my bank book that I had to use to go banking with them. And so I'd gone back to my apartment and grabbed it, and as we were leaving, one of the ladies started having a seizure in the car, and dealing with the seizure, got it calmed down. Then I drove off, and a police officer, all of a sudden on a motorcycle bike, was in the woods, came flying out and gave me a ticket. Started writing me a ticket for going through the stop sign. I had stopped, and the ladies were arguing with them, and I was starting to get upset. And coincidentally, I'd just come out of a couple-hour training on de-escalation, and they were using what was called the soda technique. And I was trying to remember the soda technique, could not remember it. And suddenly I looked at the stop sign, and this came to me. So I don't know if you have paper and pen, but what I usually have people do is draw an octagon, the stop sign, and then write the word stop vertically, and you don't have to do it to do that, but each letter stands for something. So what do you think the S stands for? That would be helpful in a crisis situation or a conflict or a difficult situation, and the word's already there. So the first thing you do is you stop. And then the T, what do you think the T stands for? I think I just gave it away. So you stop and you think. And what are you thinking about that starts with an O? So stop, think, options. You're thinking of some options. And then from the options, you need to pick one, and that's your plan. So that's the acronym I use to try to calm things, deal with my feelings, adjust my attitude so that I can deal with things. And I have this worksheet that we used to use. So stop, think, options, plan. And then what you're obviously doing is you're looking at what the problem is. And then for each of those options, you want to ask yourself, number 3, is it safe? How might people feel? Is it fair? Will it work? So whichever option makes the most sense, that's what you pick. Now, the bottom line is, going back here, if you stop to think for a few seconds, you're going to catch your breath, if you will, and you're going to be able to think more clearly. You don't really have to remember stop, think, options, plan, because you do it automatically. So most of us do that automatically. We want to calm ourselves so we can deal with the situation. One Then you want to see if it's working, because if it's not working, what's happening is our core issue isn't being dealt with sometimes. There's many layers to an onion and they're defenses for us. So like an onion, we want to peel each layer off to get to the core issue so we can actually resolve things. It's like a firewall protecting us from the core issue. If you go straight to the core issue on some things, we unravel because we can't really manage. It's difficult to manage stuff if we go too fast. Some things are pretty intense that we're dealing with. So we need to build the coping skills. They need to evolve as we're going along. So that's true also for your caretaking. Sometimes situations are very, very difficult. You want to try to have the supports to help support you as much as possible, or find the time to kind of think things through so you can kind of, if you will, if it's really burning you up, you want to find solutions that are manageable one layer at a time. So you want to deal with those layers one layer at a time. It takes time, patience, and persistence, and also just focusing on what's happening that I'm so uncomfortable with this situation. Now, it might be that you've taken on quite a bit and you need some more assistance, and that you're taking on too much and you may need to have someone else help. That might be it, and that might be what you want to take a look at. Okay, so you don't want this to happen, end up outside of the, right? So you want to make sure that you're thinking things through, you're getting the help that you need. So you want to be cartwheels and end up being like this unicorn. So before COVID-19, I saw a research that said 1 out of 10 men were washing their hands before they left the bathroom. So just a little comedy here. Possible solutions, stop sign technique. And then we have a lot of grandparents having their kids try to help them on the computer get things lined up. Pretty big issue, because that's where we've moved now. We've become very virtual. So suddenly Zoom has been like, I mean, their stock must have soared. And we're still trying to decide professional sports. I guess baseball's going again. We don't know what's going to happen with football. So there's some big things going on. Discover our choices. I'll back up. So discover your choices. In every situation, there are things that can and cannot be changed. We help ourselves when we choose something that can be changed and working towards that solution. So things that can be changed are your beliefs. Your beliefs are changed by knowledge gained through time, experience. Your attitude, your thoughts, your perspective, how honest you are, who your friends are, what books you read, how often you exercise. I won't read them all, but there are choices, and you have a choice to social distance if you want, and I'm sure we all are. One of the keys is to positively reframe things when we're discovering our choices and adjusting our attitude. To try to find a way to do things because we want to do them rather than we have to do them. If we're doing things because we have to do them, and there's many things we have to do, but if we go into it with that have to approach, we tend to get resentful. It tends to be more burdensome than it needs to. So finding a way to want to, that it's an honor to care for someone that once cared for me, or it's an honor to care for our elders kind of approach versus I have to do this because nobody else will do it. The difference is huge. It's a mindset, but this, in addition to breathing, this would be the other takeaway that I would highlight the most of anything that I have to share with you today. It's a matter of how we frame things. And our whole approach is improved when we do things because we want to do them. So for instance, with COVID-19, some people think they're stuck in the house. They don't want to be there. If instead we just said, I'm safe in my home, spending time with my family, or I'm going to run out of food. In the beginning, people were worried about maybe some of that. Instead, just I'm prepared with everything I need now, and we'll plan to use items wisely. We try to, when we shop, we try to go early in the morning for the kapuna hours. We use that quite a bit, actually, that approach. I'm scared that I'll get sick. That is the biggest fear out there right now. So instead, try to think that I'll do everything I can in my control to keep myself and my family healthy. I mean, what we need to do is out there. We hopefully are just following that. This will never end. It does kind of have that feeling. This will pass, and we'll have a whole different approach, and hopefully we learn from it. And I'll stop there. Those are just different ways to kind of discover our choices and adjust our attitude around them, deal with our feelings. So I don't know if you know the Maslow's hierarchy, but this is a pyramid, and at the very framework at the base is physiological needs. So it's the food, water, warmth, rest, shelter. We basically, in life, we need, if something's unsafe, we need to deal with this first layer, the basic needs, the physiological needs first before we can move to the next, which is safety and security. So these two kind of coincide. So trying to stay safe during this COVID-19 is very, very important. And for our kapuna as well, of course, because they're very vulnerable, but so are we. And then after we get through that, then we can do all these other things, the belongingness, the intimate relationships and friendship, which is so important, the psychological needs, esteem needs, prestige and feeling of accomplishment, your jobs, who you are as a person, those kinds of things. And then we move into self-actualization. So this was at the beginning of COVID, this came out. People were kind of feeling that they weren't accomplishing things that they wanted to accomplish. And we want to normalize that that's just where we are right now. And certainly we opened things up and we tried to move back through this, but right now we're kind of going back the other direction for right now. And that can get pretty frustrating for folks. Bottom line is, you know, us that are caring for our kapuna, many of the things that we need to be doing to stay safe from COVID-19, we've needed to be doing all along. There's flus and colds and pneumonia and things out there that we're protecting people from. So try to just focus on that. These basic needs are very important before we do all these other things, okay? So that's kind of where we are again now. So everything in our life is a reflection of a choice you've made. If you want something different, make a different choice. So even with our caretaking, there's various choices we can make and take. And it's kind of like, you know, you can't change the ocean or the weather. So we just had that scare with Hurricane Douglas, no matter how hard we try. So it's best to learn how to sail in all conditions. So I cleared off our deck of all of our furniture just in case, right? I wasn't taking any chances. Accept imperfection. So this one I'm going to highlight. This is one of the hardest ones for folks of all things, of course, because we all want to do things right. So there's a lesson to be learned in every mistake. So let me just read what I have here. No person or thing is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. We can help ourselves by remembering this and then adjusting our attitude and discovering our choices. So what tends to happen is a lot of us are perfectionists, and so we overthink. And overthinking is basically the art of creating problems that don't exist. We want to meet things where they're at. There's a certain level of understanding what's happening, doing what's needed, and then overthinking. The overthinking brings on stress, unneeded stress, but many of us do that. We want to get to the point that at the end of the day, what really matters is that your loved ones are well, you've done the best you can, and that you're thankful for all that you have. If it's been a very tough day, maybe it's been a horrible day, at the end of the day, you really want to just remind yourself that tomorrow's another day and you're going to approach it the best that you can. Some things are just very, very hard to manage, and they're not going to be perfect. And that imperfection is just part of what we need to deal with. And so when it gets to be too much, we need to give ourselves a relaxation break. And there's my relaxation. So give yourself a break. When you get tired physically or emotionally, we can help ourselves get our energy back by relaxing and taking a break from what we're doing. Taking a break helps us feel better and re-energized, and then you can come back to the task. So taking a few deep breaths, stretching your body, listening to maybe some music for a little bit, dancing, meditate, read a book, take a break and read a book if you can, journal your thoughts. Writing is a great way to take a break and deal with things. Take a walk, get crafty, maybe focus on cooking a new meal, something like that. I'm not going to do, I'm going to skip that one. So what I'd like to do right now is a progressive relaxation exercise with folks, just for a couple of minutes to give you a break, because we've been going on a little bit here. So I'd like you to get comfortable, which I'm sure you are. When we start, I'll have you close your eyes. I'll just explain what we're going to do here. And I'll have you let your mind go blank. I'll explain that as well. And we're going to concentrate on slowing our breathing down. And the best way to do that is we're going to inhale and fill our diaphragm comfortably. And then when we're ready, we're going to exhale and let it all out. And people tend to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. If you're comfortable doing that, however you're breathing will work. That'll be fine. And then I'm going to just a real brief muscle relaxation. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I have an exercise at 17 minutes. I'm going to spend about 2 minutes. Muscle relaxation is basically we're going to tighten our muscles regions as tight as we can as we breathe in. And then when we exhale, we're going to release the tension and imagine all of our stress leaving as we release our tension. And the way I do the exercise, we're not going to do the whole thing, but I usually start with our feet and work our way all the way up through all 15 regions, and finish with the actual squinching your eyes. And so then your muscles are pretty relaxed at that stage. And then we're going to do imagery. So I'm going to do like one muscle relaxation, and then we'll move into the imagery from the breathing. And then at the end, we're going to say, and I'll say this again, we'll say to ourselves that I feel relaxed and ready to continue my day. And then we'll slowly open our eyes. So I'd like to do that with you, if you don't mind. So everybody close their eyes and concentrate on your breathing as you let your mind go blank. Let your mind go blank as you breathe in and out. And as you breathe in and out, let all your thoughts drift away and just concentrate on what I'm saying and breathing in and out. And as you're breathing in and out, feel your body relaxing and your mind going blank as you breathe in and out. And you don't have to follow my pace, just find a comfortable level of breathing in and out. And as you continue to breathe in and out, let's tighten up our feet muscles, ankle, toes, squinch them all together, tighter as you're breathing in, as tight as you can, hold it for a second, and then as you breathe out, release, relax your feet muscles, and imagine all your tension flowing out through your feet muscles as you breathe in and out. And just feel how relaxed your feet feel as you then move to your calf muscles. Tighten your calf muscles tighter and tighter, just as tight as you can. And then when you're ready, exhale and relax your calf muscles and imagine all your tension leaving as you breathe in and out. And then on your own, you can do all the muscle regions, but for right now, as you're breathing in and out, imagine yourself in a relaxing place as you breathe in and out. See yourself in that relaxing place as you're breathing in and out. Notice your surroundings as you breathe in and out. See what's around you as you're breathing in and out. Hear the sounds around you as you're breathing in and out. Are there smells that you notice as you're breathing in and out? Feel relaxed in your relaxing place as you breathe in and out. And then just be in your relaxing place, experiencing your relaxing place as you breathe in and out. And then when you're ready, say to yourself, I feel relaxed and ready to continue my day. Take a couple more breaths in and out. And return to the presentation. Open your eyes slowly and smile. Okay, so how was that for folks? If anybody wants to chat, how was that experience? I imagine you've done progressive relaxation before. Progressive relaxation is kind of the start, if you will, for meditation. You can also just move right into a more meditative. It is meditation, basically. Kathy, do we have anyone saying anything? Kathy, is anyone, so I saw I was muted. I hope I was still there as you guys were breathing.
Okay, I'm here.
How was that experience for folks?
Hold on just a second. I've got 5 responses here. So relaxed it almost made me sleep.
Yeah.
Never really done it before, but it worked. Awesome, relaxed, nice. I feel so revived.
Very good.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So in the 90s, I actually put together a relaxation tape with Stephen Help from Spectrum Suite playing in the background. And Kathy and I do some things with Dr. Wong, and you guys may know him. He has a website that he's working on, focusing around Alzheimer's kinds of stuff and supporting folks. And I've done a couple of videos with them, and one of them was to do relaxation. But I have this 17-minute tape I really like, so I shared that with them. And it's taken on a life of its own. They actually took the step of contacting Stephen Helpram, and we're in the midst of actually redoing it. I'm going to use one of her offices to have a quiet place to redo it. And once we do it, this is to be given out. If you like, we can share the link. And it's the full 17-minute relaxation exercise that I've been using for many years. Right now I have it on a CD. And their sound guy actually discovered that the sound kind of varies, and it wasn't perfect, and they expect imperfection for this. No, they expect perfection for this, and so I have to redo it. But we have the person that recorded the music that I play in the background, which is pretty cool, and we'll share that with you. I can't share it just yet because he needs to hear the finished product and approve it. Otherwise, I would have played it. I've been playing it, but now we're actually dealing with the guy that made the recording that I used, and it's really pretty cool. This exercise, there is a lot we can do with this. So again, I'm just dovetailing all the strategies together. So when we stop and we focus on our breathing, I mean, there's things that we can do. When you're caring for someone, it's hard to take eyes off them. I always say that, taking a break is when breaks happen. So, when they're napping or something, you could probably take a time. But when things are stressful, when you're actually in a stressful situation, and I've been a crisis worker for, forever, what we tend to find is that slowing our breathing is what helps us focus on dealing with the crisis, calming ourselves. is very, very important. So we can do this by just simply closing our eyes if it's safe to, and that reduces stress, but more so stopping and remembering to breathe is
Hey,
really the key. Yeah.
let me interrupt here. We got a couple more responses I wanted you to hear while we're in that same
Oh,
mode.
okay. All right.
That was really nice. Interesting that an earthquake happened here on the Big Island as you started the progressive relaxation
Oh
exercise.
my gosh. Oh, that wasn't me.
And it was great. Want more and feeling great. Thank you. And,
Okay.
but one person did not quite understand the muscle part, but we can address that later.
Okay. Yeah, we can address that later. And I could do a lot more with that too. It may be hard just with the Zoom to actually see what it was that I was explaining to do, but I'll address it real fast. We're basically just tightening a muscle region. So I started with the foot, but here, my hand, I'm making a fist. So if you make a fist, take your hands and make fists and tighten them tighter and tighter and tighter as you inhale. And then when you exhale, you release your hands, open your hands, and imagine your stress leaving. It takes a little bit of imagination, but automatically that tightening up and letting go, that's a stretching exercise, yeah? But if we do, and so what I do is I use the chi. I start with the feet, the calves, the thighs, the hip pelvis region, the abdomen, the stomach, the chest, the shoulders, then your arms, right? Your neck. Then we do clenching our mouth and then clenching our eyes. And so we go through each one and we just spend a few seconds, well, 30 seconds at least, just tightening them and releasing them and experiencing the relaxation that happens. Why I add that to the relaxation, progressive relaxation, is I lettered 7 times in high school and I'm all banged up. And so stress tends to center in that broken arm that I showed earlier, or different areas that I've busted up. We all have areas. Some people store their stress in their stomach, some in their neck and shoulders, some in their back, some get headaches. And so the muscle relaxation is a way of just stretching the whole body and relaxing it. So I find it very holistic that way. The 17-minute, what I explain in there is that different people are going to gravitate towards and appreciate different parts of relaxation exercise. And the way I did the relaxation exercises, at the end, I have just of my tape that I originally made in the 90s, I just have the music. And you don't even have to have the music. Bottom line is to get to the point that you can slow your breathing and relax your body how you need to. The imagery, what's kind of cool with the imagery is we've used it for a lot of things. One way is to energize us to continue, to just relax and give ourselves the message that we're ready to go. It can also be used to actually go to sleep. So to relax ourselves so that then we can calm our mind and go to sleep rather than thoughts racing through, just to try to help just settle things down. I've also used it with folks that have phobias, obsessive compulsive issues, abuse issues, where we could actually imagine being in a situation and resolving it differently. And so that's more a progressive and a stepping stone kind of thing that we've done through the years. It's pretty cool. One thing I would note with this is that as calming as it is for us, the step is you could do all of this, and then like you just said, there was an earthquake started on the Big Island, and there's an earthquake and blood pressure goes right back up because you're trying to deal with something, or you get in the car and you're driving and someone cuts you off and hits you. I mean, so the reality is knowing that we can slow our breathing and slow our body and calm ourselves is what's important. Okay.
Rick?
Yep.
2 more thoughts. Ben shared that breathing is something we can do anywhere to de-stress as opposed to exercise, etc.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. Yeah.
One person shared that she realized she was holding her breath every time she changed her mom. So over the years, she's developed a huge lung capacity. Ha ha.
Yeah, so when we're doing something that's uncomfortable, or again, the emotions are involved, our breathing tends to shorten. With blood pressure, one of the first things high blood pressure folks, one of the first things that we try to help them with is their breathing, because oftentimes they're not breathing in a full way. Actually, just generally, we don't breathe in full way. So focusing on improving our breathing really does help us manage things. So let me go on so I get to the end here. I see you got 15 minutes, yeah? So the next step number 6, is take things one step at a time, okay? When we have too much to do or think about, as you know, we can feel overwhelmed. We'll feel better if we slow down, prioritize, and take things one step at a time. Kind of common sense, but this is just a reminder that, so I just saw somebody else post this recently, a moment of tension in the Vatican. If the bishop moves forward, the queen will take him one step at a time.
That's good.
So the process is, so folks tend to fall into two categories. Now with this Hurricane Douglas, I heard them actually talking about this, and I just did a training at HPGS that I moderated. It's a Hawaii Pacific Gerontological Society that Kathy and I are, well, Kathy was president of it last year. And they were talking about something I talk about all the time is people tend to fall into being proactive or reactive. So some people tend to take charge of life and plan. Other people let life happen to them and are caught off guard, and everything in between. So the process of being proactive is to learn and plan as we think and we act and we reflect. So we take in information and we plan, we come up with a crisis plan. So that earthquake, you know, do you have, you know, so in Seattle, we always had earthquake kits. When the hurricane was coming, my wife asked if I had the hurricane kit ready. And I said, it's always been ready. We have a camping kit that has everything in it. So we have it. I know where it is. I know what we need to do. We think it through. As a mental health clinician, I wrote crisis plans for many people, and that really helps us think things through. And then when we actually use it, we want to review and make sure it worked, because if it didn't, then we want to modify it. That's being proactive. It's the same with aging. Every single one of us on here, you guys are probably caring for somebody, but we also are going to go through the aging process. And what's our plan? What do we want to have happen when our time comes up to go through that process? Thinking that through and already having something in mind is very important. Let's see. So we want to identify our decisions, gather information, identify alternatives, so different options, weigh the evidence for each one, choose among the alternatives which we think is best, take action, and then review. Always review to make sure it's working, because chances are you're going to have to modify. Not always just the onion. Sometimes it's just we haven't fully planned. And so those are important. Okay, so common sense. So take one day at a time is all we should be dealing with. We can't go back to yesterday and we can't control tomorrow. So live one day at a time. So I say, in addition to having plans, we need to focus on being in the here and now. And so how we do that. So what we find in mental health is folks that are really focused on the past tend to fall into the depression range unless they've learned from the past. And folks that are really, really worried about the future tend to have anxiety unless they use the past lessons and apply them to the future. We want to live in the moment, and we call that being in the zone, learning from the past while planning for the future. And you can apply that to anything and everything, basically. So just threw that in there. Treat yourself kindly. So that's what we just did with the relaxation. I could have put that here too. So peace is the calm that we have within inside us, that we find within us, despite what's happening outside of us. And so kind of the zone, I used to play football, and so it would get really loud. To focus on the play, you had to block out the noise and just focus on what you needed to do. Caretaking is much like that as well. You know, don't hold your breath while you're bathing or changing or wiping or those kinds of things. Maybe you wear a mask. Maybe the plan is that you wear a mask so it's not so, you know, difficult, especially when you're doing toileting kinds of things. So that calm that we find inside, that's important. And then I took this at Central Park in New York at Strawberry Fields, John Lennon Park. It was pretty cool. Somebody had put those flowers out there. This a couple of years, well, 4 years ago now. So if you want to be trusted, so this is when folks are doing hiring caregivers, you want to make sure that you can trust them and that they're honest. It's one of the first things people always ask me, you know, is can they be trusted? And I always say that respect is earned through trust and honesty. And so you do want to get to the point that you can trust them and feel comfortable with people. If you bring them into the home, it's very, very important. I worked with Right at Home for 3 years, as I mentioned before. That's on my bio, but I'm not there as of February. But I would always tell folks it's important that they feel comfortable with who's working with them, and if they don't, that they let the agency know so they can try to find someone else. Now, sometimes it's hard to find other people, but it's still within. I mean, it's your home. It's your kapuna's home, and it's important to feel comfortable with people that are working with folks. It's also important for us to be honest and trustworthy. Um, Kindness is not an act, it's a lifestyle. And here we have the aloha spirit, which is a lifestyle for sure. And what I really love about Kapuna here on the island is, I always say it's the last of the aloha spirit. I hope it lasts, but they've definitely got it. I mean, the folks that we're helping here are remarkable. So I always pray to have the eyes to see the best, a heart that forgives the worst, and a mind that forgets the bad, and a soul that never loses faith. All right, so we're almost there. Plan ahead, number 8. So when you have a lot to do or think about, planning ahead can help prevent problems before they arise. This is what I was just talking about. Planning helps us have enough time, energy, and the tools we need to complete the task. So I always say a dream written down with a date becomes a goal, or even written down, it becomes a goal. A goal broken down into steps becomes a plan backed by action becomes reality. This is kind of how I live my life. Many things I've accomplished have been dreams, and I've set them down as goals. Again, you have to discover your choices, but even within choices, it's unbelievable what can be done if you really think it's important. Here's my grandpa. He had a bit of dementia. I'm the kid there on the far left, and my cousin Scott in the center between his knees, and my cousin Bruce right next to him. We just lost Scott to cancer in December. He's actually going to be interned next Saturday. I can't make it because of COVID, sadly. Bruce died of cancer 2 years ago. Oh, what just happened? Sorry. And Grandpa, we lost some time ago. But we've discovered, and you may well know these steps, but I know this is the dementia in the family workshop, and so we want to get to the point that we agree never to argue. Now, we're human, and that's why I brought up family dynamics. It's pretty easy to fall into those patterns, but we want to remind ourselves that arguing is not going to solve anything, especially with dementia. Divert, never try to reason. Now, I know Dr. Balaz talked about that a little bit. Diverting is very important. It's pretty easy to divert. Hey, look who's on TV. It's pretty easy to move things rather than trying to reason and argue. Distract, never shame, blame, or put down. You can own your feeling. I'm feeling frustrated right now because we need to get this done. But then you need to move into nicely, how are we going to do this? Making some suggestions. Reassure. Don't start lecturing. Reminisce. Never say, do you remember? That one I go around with, but repeat. Never say, I told you. Let the person do what they can do. That's very important. And as much as they can assist in doing something, so I always say, don't take people's power away from them. Without their power, they're nothing. So you really want to be able to, even brushing teeth, you can hold their hand with them holding the brush and guide them, kind of thing. Never say, you can't do that. Ask nicely in a pleasant, agreeable, uplifting kind of manner. Encourage rather than be condescending. Don't get all superior and patronizing. Reinforce, never force. So I took this from somebody else's information and thought, it's useful in each one of those. Again, we're not going to be perfect, except imperfection. It's just food for thought and just a nice way to kind of approach things. Some of us do better with some of these than others do with others. But there it is. I always say you've survived every single thought, everything you thought you wouldn't. We've all gotten through it. We're going to get through the COVID stuff as well. So here's an interesting one, Albert Einstein. Logic will get you from A to B, but imagination will take you everywhere else. So when we're 10th, it's pretty hard to be creative or use our imagination. Again, that's when it's important to breathe, take care of ourselves, calm ourselves so that peace inside helps open up the imagination so we can be creative. It's amazing what we can accomplish when we use our imagination. So the task functions, we want to move from being task oriented, although it's important to get the task accomplished, but be a little more maintenance oriented sometimes where we're taking care of ourselves. I'm not going to read through the whole thing because time is wrapping up, but those are two roles that we take when we're doing a task. We want a balance of the two to accomplish the task. So here's one of my emergency plans. In the event of a tornado, put some wieners in your pockets. That way the search dogs will find you first. You can do that during a hurricane also. And if you get stuck, then you got some food with you. Last, so ask for help. So that's my brother telling a fishing story, actually. So that first hug after this quarantine time that we're going through here is going to be a little different. It's going to hit big. When I was a boy, this is true, Fred Rogers had the same experience. When I was a boy, and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You'll always find people who are helping. And that's why I was a corpsman, to save lives, not take lives. Be the helper. And I think everybody in this training probably is a helper. But when we get stressed, we want to ask for help too. So if you're missing somebody, call them. If you want to meet up with somebody, of course, a little harder right now, invite them to Zoom maybe, yeah. So here's a little list of resources. Kathy has a whole lot more. So Alzheimer's Association with a link. Now you have this in your handout with the website. Compassion and Choice. So I've been doing stuff with Alzheimer's Association for a couple of years now. Compassion and Choice, I just started doing some things with them. So that's end of life kinds of things. Kakua Council, Kathy and I are involved with them. I'm vice president with Kakua Council. We've been doing a lot of forums with elective officials to get an idea of who folks are, but we try to give a lot of important information out to folks, different resources and things like that. HPGS, same thing. These two are the oldest, two of the oldest nonprofits for Kapuna here on the island. They started in the 70s. Hawai'i Meals on Wheels, I'm their secretary and I deliver meals. Quite a bit of stuff we do there. If you need meals, that's just one of 5 Meals on Wheels on the island, and there's other delivery things out there as well. So the information is there for that. I Find Generations magazine, their television show, radio show, we've been on that. Kathy's been on that. The magazine, there's a resource section there that Percy's put together that I find pretty useful. But it's a magazine that comes out every 2 months. It's free. A lot of good information in there. The ADRC put together a food resource during COVID. This was some time ago they put it out. Some things probably have changed, but it's a good link with a lot of information. And then with the ADRC is the Elderly Affairs Division is another one. Kathy has a lot of other resources. This is just all I could fit on this page. So there's that, just food for thought. And then my final slide is this one. So my hope is, let's hope when we're through cocooning, there's more butterflies than moths out there. And I will stop there. I have a whole thing of mindfulness, but it's now 10:30. And so I'm going to stop at this point. If there are questions, I'm happy to take them.
Okay, I have a few.
Okay.
Okay, the first one is, are there any formed respite support groups similar to hospice volunteers that offer respite to caregivers? I'm going to say there isn't a specific group like that, but if your loved one is able to walk or is capable of being in a wheelchair for a short time, a lot of adult daycare centers have respite hours if you want to take a couple hours off and do something for yourself. A lot of the home care companies have people that will come out and just be a companion for a couple of hours or however long you want them while you go out and do what you want to do for yourself.
Right. So in-home care works on a 4-hour minimum. And so if you want to hire somebody to come in for 4 hours, there's that, but you're going to find all agencies kind of work on that system. There's lots of different support groups out there, but not for respite kind of things, but just for support. Kathy's starting one up. Alzheimer's Association has a number. So Alzheimer's Association and Compassion and Choice, but Alzheimer's Association, I work with them a lot. All of their supports are free. Dr. Balaz does some of this stuff there. Compassion and Choice is about to start some stuff up. Yeah. What other questions do we have?
Okay. Do you have advice for caretakers of a person with dementia that is unique to Hawaii, customs, ethnicity, etc.? Techniques that you would have seen here in Hawaii that may not work elsewhere?
Oh gosh, I mean, well, I know, I don't want to be selling right at home, but I know that our agencies here are very cognizant of local Hawaii, kind of, we're hiring, people from Hawaii. So naturally they bring in the Hawaii culture. I've had caregivers that part of their shift, they either just dance hula or they get the kapuna up dancing hula with them, kind of things. I think we're very cognizant here on the island, most folks, of just local kinds of things. We oftentimes get asked if people can cook, different ethnic kinds of food, be it Hawaiian, be it Japanese, be it Korean. So we try to accommodate as much as we can around those kinds of things. I don't know. What do you think, Kathy?
Well, those would be good questions for Dr. Balaz.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and when I send you her slides, I'll send them this week. Her email, and I think she has a website in there. You can contact her by email and ask her that question if that works for you.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, because she is Hawaiian, and she deals a lot with the Hawaiian patients with dementia.
Yeah.
So the next question is how can you remember to train yourself to take a few deep breaths?
So that's a really, really good question. And what I've taught clients throughout the 45 years is the best thing to do is to practice it when you're not stressed and make it a part of your just regular routine. And so when I first started giving out the relaxation tapes to people, and now CDs, I would suggest that you run them a couple of times during the day, just as a regular routine. It's the same with meditating. I mean, people have a set time that they meditate, but you want to get it into a routine so that then when you do get to the point that you're stressed, you automatically have that as your fallback. I've done it so much. I started with track. I fortunately had a college kid that was a superstar kind of college kid who took me out to the track, and the first thing he taught me was how to breathe. And it just became, just so important in life. But I too find myself not breathing when I get stressed. So it's just a, nice reminder. You could also just post, a sticky, like by your computer or something, remember to breathe, kind of thing. I have pictures, let's see if I can find it real fast, that I use that, there, remember to breathe. I think that's the last page on your PowerPoint that I gave. I'm not going to do the mindfulness that was before that, but I would encourage you to read that. It's good stuff. Read through that because that actually gives you some centering ideas, some verbiage around how to center the mindfulness. And then remember to breathe. You could put something together like that you just put up. It could be a picture that you put up that reminds you. People have seven different ways of learning. Some of it's visual, some kind of reminder, but it's practice, 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 practice.
Okay. The next question, I can help you with this as well, but what should you do if you're faced with aggressive behavior, verbal and/or physical aggression occur? Can you show that resource slide again that you just had up, please? It was blue, your resource page.
Which one?
The aggressive behavior, verbal or physical, if you can, just walk away and it will pass. Try to divert them to a different activity, get their attention on something else, like look at the bluebird out the window or something like that. But just try to divert or walk away and let them get through it, and then go back and do what you were doing. Rick, go ahead.
Well, and then too, I mean, that's exactly what you want to do. You don't want to get pulled into it. So you too want to just step away from it if it's safe to. But you also, so if it's a family member, there may be a conversation with the doctor. Take a look at, if there's any pattern, if it's a regular kind of thing that's going on, because people can respond differently to their medications, and sometimes it's just changing when the medications are administered, kind of thing. I think Dr. Blas talked about that too. Yeah. Yeah.
That's why it's good to keep a diary of things like that that happen when at the time of day and what the situation was and what the behavior was. Because remember, she said that every behavior has a meaning. It's not
Yep.
just they're acting out. There's a reason why they're doing the behavior. So keep a documentation of that and look at it after a couple of weeks and see if there's a pattern, and maybe you need to just change the situation they're in.
So in counseling, we talk about resistant clients, and really there is no resistance. The resistance is really a situation that they're responding to. And so cognitively, even with dementia, it's usually a situation that they're responding to. I don't want anybody taking on blame that they're doing anything. You do just want to open-mindedly, like Kathy said, document it, try to figure out the pattern. We would do crisis kind of work, and we would be called in that somebody was acting out, and we'd come, or they wouldn't go to bed, or they're getting up too early in the morning. We go out and we discover that there's construction going next door, and that's when the construction would start. It had nothing to do with somebody being oppositional. So you just want to just openly look at, what, yeah.
And always remember, it's the disease, not your loved one.
Exactly.
Okay, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, there were 2 people that requested this, and I'm going to let you address it, but Laura asked that she wanted to get the slides that you used this morning because they're not exactly the same as you had. And I told her there were too many to send, but maybe you could share via Google Drive or compress the slides into a zip file. And then another person said the ones sent are also black and white and not as in focus. Is it possible to get this set of slides as in color and in better focus?
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I only have a black and white printer. So it's 149 megabytes, the entire presentation, which was 97 slides. And even with Dropbox, the most you could send is 100. So I had to downsize, which is what I did. I tell you what, if you let us know which slides that you want. I mean, I could probably just send us a separate. You know what I could do? What I'll do, it won't be in black. It'll be black and white. Well, no, I know what I do. I'll just send the ones that I didn't send, and there'll be a part 2. How about that?
Or do you know how to do a zip file?
Yeah, I can figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll wind it up here now. Thank you guys so much for coming today and sticking around for this long. Rick is entertaining as well as knowledgeable and has a lot of information for us. Oh, somebody wants a copy of your relaxation breathing exercise. Okay. Anyway, next week, I told you we may have a change from reversing the last 2 weeks, but it will be you'll still get all the information. If you have any questions, you know my email. You get it often enough. And please continue to fill out your post-test, pre-test evaluations and get them to me. We'll see you next week, and have a great week. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
You're sure welcome.
Thank you. My scrolling all of a sudden started writing.
It is.
I don't know, these scribbles. What does she want? She wants a copy of that?
The slide with the resources?
No, the
Oh, yeah.
application.
I'm
Isn't
missing.
Wasn't that in the PowerPoint?
I think it is. Yeah, hold on.
All right.
She can get a slide with the resources. That was one of them.
Kathy, this is Leanne. Can you just tell me about your time for your Monday group session?
Yes, it's from 6:30 in the evening to 8 o'clock. This will be the first Zoom caregiver support group we've had so far. So a lot of them are regular people that come to the in-person one, but we have several new people that have joined us actually for these presentations.
Got it. I'll just email you the address, right? For the address, the Zoom address.
Yes. Well, yeah,
Okay.
if you'll email me that you're interested, and I'll send you the Zoom connection.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're sure welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye.